All right, and then from the assignments, you'll go ahead and click on Analytical Report. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're going to be following the project description in Rubric. All right, so I'm just going to download this. All right. So basically what you're going to do, there's a couple different parts to this. Okay, one of them is the report itself. Okay, another are your presentation slides. Okay, the third component is the presentation itself. All right, so you're going to be presenting for between 10 and 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to deduct points if you're under 9 or if you're over 16. So what does that mean you should probably do? You should probably practice. All right, now personally, I'm not one to practice a presentation. I wing pretty much everything. All right, but that's me. That might not work for you. Okay? I also get a little bit less nervous when I wing stuff. Make of that what you will. A lot of different ways to handle things. All right? So, 10 to 15 minutes. I think that you all know what that means. Got the due date. It's listed in Canvas. Okay, so all you got to do is go to Canvas. Just going to go there real quickly. And you'll be able to see the schedule. Okay, the schedule has the due date on it. Also, the assignment has the due date on it. So let's go to your little tentative schedule here. Open that up. All right, so if you look at the, tell you what, every time I use Canvas, I feel like I'm limited by the technology of my time. Goodness. All right, May 4th. Project is due. Okay. I think we all kind of decided as a class to have the presentation day just be on the final exam day. Again, not everyone has to be present, just one person from your group. Does that sound good? That way you guys have a little bit of time to study for other classes. Probably not a good reason to study for my class, is there? Because you've already had both exams. All right? Now, if you wanted to, you could certainly work with your group on this day and practice your presentation. You have that ability. Just not going to hold class that day. Does that sound good? Okay. So does everyone understand the due date? There's 2 due dates. One of them is May 4th. Okay, the other is the final exam day. Okay, what's due on May 4th? Okay, so the report and the slides are both due on May 4th. What's due on the exam day? Your presentation. All right, let's go over the general information. Okay, so basically what you're going to be doing is each group, once you get together with your group, which we're going to have time to do, but once you do, okay, you're going to be selecting a publicly traded firm. Cannot be a privately held firm. You're going to research the firm. I have some potential business sources here. I think by and large, I think these are a good place to be. You'll notice I don't have up Bloomberg. Okay, so Bloomberg has actually put forth some false stories about companies, most notably Supermicro. Okay, so they accuse them of having hardware that was designed to basically spy. So it's not spyware, but it's basically hardware that would do that same function. And that was a total fabrication. Okay, so I suggest against using fake news personally. All right. And also you're going to get data from stuff like SEC Edgar database. Okay, so I have a link to the SEC Edgar database. If we have time, we'll go over how to use that, but it's really simple. You're just going to be getting data from that as well. And you're just researching the firm. Okay, so you're going to be going through and also doing forecasting. Okay, so you're going to be selecting 3 separate methods of forecasting. You get to pick, okay? You have some examples up here. You can do others, all right? For the firm's quarterly revenue. Now, if you're doing quarterly, what does that probably mean your period's going to be? Well, what does it definitely mean your period's going to be? It's going to be a quarter, right? Now, let's say you are doing weighted moving average or simple moving average, okay? You can do 3 period or you can do 4 period for either simple moving average or weighted moving average with quarterly data. You should probably do 4. Okay, if you do 3, you need to have a very strong justification. Because with quarterly data, okay, you're going to have 4 quarters. And you're going to be predicting, presumably, whatever the least recent is that you have. Okay, so let's say it is, okay, it's April right now, right? It's going to be May when this is due. So that means you're not going to have quarter 2, 2022, are you? So you're probably going to be predicting quarter 2, 2022. Okay? Likely. This is a guess. Okay, so you may start at quarter 2, 2021. And this will be quarter 1, 2022. All right? So why would you use 4 quarters to predict instead of 3? Not a trick question. Okay? Well, it does, but I mean, why not use 100 quarters in that case? Okay? So why is it important to have 4 quarters when you're predicting quarters? Okay, so if you're predicting quarter 2 of 2022, it's very important that you have quarter 2 of the previous year. Does that make sense? So keep that in mind. All right? You're going to be building a database. What does that mean? It means you're making create statements. And we'll talk about that more. Okay? Now, here's an important thing. Don't plagiarize this. All right? You must properly cite everything that you use. Okay? If it's not your opinion about the company's performance, if you get financial data, that's not your opinion. You got that from somewhere. You have to cite it. Okay, you also must use in-text citations. What's an in-text citation? Okay, so if I say this course is BA 223. Okay, an in-text citation would be FLC 2022. Something like that. It's not a quote from them, but it's saying where the data comes from. You don't use in-text citations, it's plagiarism. Does that make sense? Let's talk about participation. I expect everyone to participate, not in every aspect of it, but if you're assigned 2 tasks and you blow them both off, you know, what's this first sentence say? Someone read the first sentence. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you don't do your job, I'm going to give you a 0. All right, no, I don't want to do that, but I will. Okay, so basically, it's up to your team how you divvy stuff up. But if your team approaches me and all of you agree that the person did nothing, I'm going to give them a 0. It's not something I take lightly. Okay, Certainly doesn't bring me joy, but without hesitation, if this is met, then you'll get a 0. If you get a 0 on this, you're going to fail the class? Yeah, you will. Okay? Let's talk about the deliverables. What are you actually turning in? Okay, so first part is a business report. A lot of different sections in here. Take notes on what you need to. Okay, so basically, I don't tell you how many pages this should be. If you can do it in 10 pages and you did solid analysis, that's fine. If you do it in 20 pages and it's solid analysis, that's fine. I'm not putting a length requirement. However, certain sections will have a minimum number of paragraphs. Not all paragraphs are the same length, okay? You want to do a good job, though. But a good job doesn't necessarily mean it's long. A bad job doesn't necessarily mean it's short. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're going to be having an executive summary, the first part of which is summarizing your firm. Okay, so your firm characteristics. That's going to include all these things I have listed up here. Okay, a lot of different things you're going to be including. Now, what should you have for these sentences? In-text citation. Exactly right. Because it's not your opinion that the CEO of Apple is Tim Cook. That's a fact. That didn't come from you. Does that make sense? So a lot of this is going to come from the company's 10K report in the Edgar database. All right. So it's going to take a little while to type all that. It's going to be about 3 to 5 paragraphs. Okay? Then you're going to have a section about the database. Okay? So again, you're going to be designing a database. You're going to be making the create statements for the database. And you're going to be discussing why the firm needs a database. So why are databases important? Okay, what's a big reason? Databases, among many things, help reduce transactional costs. All right, transactional costs, something that you want to keep as low as possible. Okay, so as you are using a transaction, you don't want to pay $5 to have a transaction. What do you want to do instead? Okay, you want to have a minimal cost. So you're going to talk about which cost it's going to reduce. What else is important for business? Cost and what? Revenue. How may a database affect revenue? Okay, can it open up additional business opportunities? For example, does it enable e-commerce? Maybe. Does it enable microtransactions? Maybe. All depends on what your company is wanting to do. So you're going to describe that. Then you're going to provide an ERD that addresses the firm needs, and you're going to be following all guidelines for ERDs. Okay? If you need what those are, look back at your notes. All right? Describe the relationships and variables. You're probably going to have a paragraph for each of your entities. Okay? And you can basically either put all your relationships inside of a separate paragraph, or you could include them inside of the entity paragraphs. You're basically describing the ERD, though. Then you're going to be providing a SQL script to create the database, following the SQL syntax for table creation. All right? What if you forgot what the SQL syntax for table creation is? Where should you go? Your notes? Where's another place? Okay? You could go to YouTube, sure. Where else? How about the W3 Schools SQL tutorial I have posted in Canvas? Those are all 3 places you could go. Okay, then you're going to describe how what you're doing is going to affect your revenue and or profit. That's probably the most important thing here, is it not? What's more important than revenue and profit? Nothing. Revenue and profit are the most important things. It's not a joke. It's serious. You're going to be detailed and logical. It's going to take you likely 2 paragraphs. Then you're going to be making a data dictionary. All right, so what you're doing in a data dictionary is you're basically making a table of tables. So everything is going to be organized by the tables that you're having inside of your ERD, okay? And specifically inside the database that you're making. And what you're having is you're having the column. So let's say your first column for the person table may be person ID. Okay, then you're going to have where you're defining what person ID is. Okay, then you're going to be giving the data type of it. Does that make sense? So, if your first table was person, you'd have person, and then you would have it sectioned off into your different things. So you would have column name. You would have column definition. And finally, okay, you're going to have data type. Okay, so for person, we said person ID. You would say this uniquely identifies each person. Okay, its data type, we'll call it big int. This has to match your create statement, by the way. Any questions about the data dictionary? Does it make sense? All right. That's all about the database. Now, another part of this is going to be forecasting. So you have a lot of flexibility for what source you use. Quite frankly, I don't really care. Okay, so whatever source you can get to the easiest to give you quarterly data, use it. You're going to be providing the forecast for the firm's revenue, profit, and stock price. Each of those are annual or quarterly. What does it say up here? Quarterly. So you're forecasting quarterly. Okay, again, 3 types of forecasting. You can pick whichever 3 you like. All right, I have 5 examples up here. You can pick from those. You can pick from whatever. All right, and then this is what you're actually doing. Okay, you're having a paragraph that describes and interprets each forecast for the forecasting categories. Okay, so another way to think about that is you're going to have a paragraph for the firm's quarterly revenue that describes the 3 forecasts you did for it. Okay, so you have quarterly forecast. That's one of the things, or quarterly revenue. That's one of the things you're forecasting, and you're forecasting it 3 different ways. Does that make sense? So if you're forecasting it 3 different ways, you're going to have 1 paragraph for each of the things you're forecasting. So how many paragraphs are you going to have in this section? Minimum. 3, because you're forecasting 3 different things. Now, you're forecasting those 3 things 3 different ways. So, but you don't have to have 9 paragraphs. Does that make sense? So that's what you're doing in the forecast section. Now, finally, for the bibliography, okay, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using APA. You're going to be generating a bibliography. Use whatever you want. Okay, I've got some examples of citation managers. I have a suggestion about waiting until everything else is done to do this part, but I'm not here to micromanage that. All right, you either turn in an APA bibliography or you don't. Okay, does that make sense? So if you don't contain a bibliography, what is it? plagiarism. Okay? So again, this is a task I would recommend giving to one person. Personally, if it were me doing it, I'd recommend using a citation manager. You don't have to, though. So, does that make sense? Now, you do, of course, have to do the bibliography. I'm saying you don't have to do the bibliography with a citation manager. Let's talk about your presentation slides. Okay, so you're going to need to basically describe every section. Now, when I say that, certain sections are a bit redundant. For instance, do you need to cover both the ERD and your create statements? No, because they contain the same information, right? Okay, do you need to contain the data dictionary and the create statements? No. So basically what you're having is you're having a title slide. All right, you're going to have an intro slide. Okay, and then from there, all right, what you're going to do is you're going to have a slide, one slide minimum for each of the different sections, with the exception of redundant stuff. Okay, so for example, for company information, are you necessarily going to be able to fit all that on one slide? Not necessarily. All right, it may take you 2 or 3. But basically, it's going to be up to you. All right. Once again, not everyone has to do the presentation. All right. I don't really care how you break it up. Okay. If some person wants to be the presenter, that's fine. If everyone wants to be the presenter, that's fine. I'm not here to micromanage that. I really don't care how you split the task up. Okay, and then basically, for the slides, there's a couple key rules. Make sure you write these down. Okay, one of them is the 6x6 rule. What that means is you're not going to want to have more than 6 bullets, and you're not going to want to have more than 6 words in any bullet. It's called 6x6. Okay, think back to my presentation slides. Do I have more than 6 bullets on a slide? Seldom. Okay. Do I have more than 6 words on a bullet? Never. All right. So don't have more than 6 bullets in a slide. Don't have more than 6 words in any bullet. All right, it's a bullet. You're not supposed to read it off word for word. If you read it off word for word, it's kind of boring, isn't it? It's extremely boring. All right, another thing. No note cards. All right, you can use note cards. I'll just deduct points. So the way I do the presentation is, okay, 3 things negative, and then I begin deducting points. Okay, so using note cards would be one negative thing, right? Okay, let's talk about some other negative things. Okay, a big one is going to be using filler words. Includes stuff like those sorts of things. You definitely want to avoid using filler words. Okay? So another negative would include poor eye contact. Okay, if you stare at the screen, that's very poor eye contact. Another thing you'd want to make sure of is that you're having font no smaller than 28. Okay, because honestly, even 28 is a little bit difficult to read in the back. Anything below 28 is nearly impossible. So you definitely want to make sure that you're having all your font be at least size 28. Okay? Include some pictures. Make it interesting. Those are the main things, though. You definitely want to avoid getting any negatives. Any questions about what makes a presentation good? Okay, another thing that would be a negative. Okay, if you come in and let's say you want to spend 5 minutes going through your email trying to find it, that's a negative. All right, you should come to class early on the presentation day. You should have it loaded on a flash drive. Just copy it to the desktop. That shouldn't take more than 30 seconds. All right? So don't waste time. Okay. Any questions before I go over the rubric? Anything I need to clarify? Yeah, Javen. 4 to 5. And like I said, after we go over the rubric, we'll have time to split off into groups and stuff. Okay, here's the rubric. This is how you're graded. Okay, you'll notice that for grammar, it's not a separate category in that it doesn't have any points associated with it. Instead, what I do is I apply a multiplier. Okay, so if you have between 0 and 3 grammatical mistakes, your grade gets multiplied by 1. If you have between 4 and 7, I take whatever grade you earn and I multiply it by 0.9. Okay, if you have between 8 and 12, I take your grade and I multiply it by 0.8. Okay, if you have 12 or more grammatical mistakes, I multiply your grade by 0.7. All right, does that make sense? I expect good grammar. I'll give you up to 3 grammatical mistakes. I think that's pretty fair. Presentation. Again, have an excellent presentation. That means I write down 3 or fewer negatives. So again, if the only negative is the use of note cards, that's 1 negative. What does that mean? It means you still get full credit. But let's say that you use note cards, you have poor eye contact, you use a lot of filler words, and you're also having font that's too small and lots of other problems. That's when you start to get knocked down. All right. Now, if your group just straight up skips the final exam day, so no one from your group shows up, that means you get a 0 in that category. Does that make sense? Hopefully that won't happen to anyone. But if it does, that's what happens. All right, so executive summary. Again, if you do an excellent job summarizing the firm, you get 15. If you have gaps in it, you're going to get less than that. Okay, forecast section. You know, what makes a forecast logical? How you explain it. Does it make sense? Is it the correct figures? Okay. Last semester, I had a group who was forecasting Apple. You know what they said that they forecast their revenue for? They said it was going to be like 1 or 2 million for the quarter. Does that seem logical at all? No. Why not? At least. Okay, so it was either they were off by a factor of 100 or they were off by a factor of 1,000. Pay attention to units. Units matter. Diagrams. So you're going to have the ERD. If your ERD follows all of the guidelines for ERDs, it's going to be 25 points. If it has some minor issues, maybe you have a many-to-many you didn't address. Maybe you're missing stuff that you need. You know, that's going to be fewer than 25 points. All right, data dictionary. Should be a pretty straightforward thing. If it's excellent and logical, it's 10 points. If it's just decent, maybe it has some issues, maybe one of the data types inside of it doesn't match up with what you're using in your create statements. Okay, that would deduct you some points. Does that make sense? And then finally, the create statements themselves. Okay, so if you had let's say you're creating a column for first name, and you called that big int. Would that be logical? No, because you can't really have a name and well, you can, but most cases it wouldn't be easy to have a name as an integer. Okay. So just have them be logical. All right. Any questions? What time does class let out? 10 o'clock? Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and say this, and then I'll let you all split off into groups. I plan to be here every day. Well, let me rephrase. I plan to be here every class day. So you're free to work with your group in this room if you'd like. Let's say you have questions that you don't have right now as you're working. I'll be here. Okay, if no one's here, I'll either be in my office or in my lab. Okay? And, I don't want to just throw you to the wolves. All right. We have about 9 project work days in total. That's 3 weeks. So my suggestion is to come in here, work with your group. If you have a question, if you want me to look over something, I'm happy to do so. All right? So also, I have office hours. So basically what that's saying is that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm in here from 9:05 to basically 12:20. Not in this room necessarily, because my office hours are in 050. But you have 9 days where I'm available for 3 hours each day. Okay? So if you have questions, you need clarification, contact me. All right? So that's a total of almost, just on that alone, that's almost 10 hours a week. Is that a fair bit? I think it's a fair bit. Of course, I also have office hours posted Tuesday, Thursday on top of that. So, in my opinion, you should be able to have clarification if you need it, or if you want me to look over anything. All right, because let's face it, eventually I'm going to see it. Am I not? Is it not better to have me see it before it's graded? Probably is. All right, so that said, I'll go ahead and give you all about 5 minutes. Get with about 4 to 5 people per group, people you think you could work with, my suggestion, and then we will go from there. So then we'll go ahead and formally assign the groups. Also, talk about which company you want to go with. So if you don't have a group, not a big deal. I'll put you together.